Here, another exciting ascension time where we have really some of the best speakers I find in this field going to be addressing us the next 2 days. So just to start off, because we are running a little late, I want to introduce Erica Lukes, who has, yes, let's give her a hand, but she is the MUFON director of Utah, and she has been traveling the world studying anomalous phenomena, which I think is a great pastime to do. And particularly what she'll be talking about today, I think, is the, what are they called? Hessdalen lights in Norway. This is a valley in Norway that since 1981, I mean, lights have been going on, but there's been a scientific project studying these mysterious lights that just appear in this valley that seem to float out of nowhere. Actually, Norway has some of the oldest UFO history in the world, going back to the Middle Ages, where a priest noticed these strange fireballs in the sky. So there's been a whole ongoing history, particularly in Northern Europe, of strange phenomena all over. So we're going to hear a lot more about that. Erica Lukes, thanks for being here.
That is just way too complex for me. My name is Erica Lukes, and I'm very, very happy to be here with all of you, and I want to give everyone that is working on this conference, specifically Neil and all of you, no, that's okay, my thanks and love. It means the world to me to come out here and to connect with all of you, because all of us are here for answers, and we deserve them. I started, and we're hoping maybe my PowerPoint will come on at some point because I've got some amazing pictures. But to give you a little bit of my background, I have been an experiencer my whole life. You're good? Okay, thank you. I have, back in my childhood, I had several experiences where I was terrified. I always slept with the light on. I still do. I slept with 20 stuffed animals around me, and I grew up knowing that I was different and that I had things that I needed to study. And so when I was in grade school, I found a book on a shelf, and that book had a UFO on it, and I picked it up, and I never stopped. I began researching in grade school. I kept having experiences, and it was just truly amazing for me. In my 20s, I had a wonderful, and I'm just trying to get this to open. We're going to see if my PowerPoint will open, because I've got some good stuff on here. We'll see. We'll just keep praying. But in my 20s, I had the fortune of living in a very haunted house, and I would have experiences where I would see shadow figures walking through my room at night. Everyone that was at my house would see the same things as well, and so it was very, very unique. In 2013, I had a view of the Salt Lake Valley, and every night I would go out there with my friends and have a glass of wine and talk. And one night in particular, there was this beautiful amber sphere that was hovering above the valley. And to me, I thought this was unusual. You know, I know what aircraft looks like coming in and out of the valley. It was also in a place where we don't see a lot of aircraft because we have some of the most restricted airspace in the United States, thanks to the NSA and Dugway Proving Ground. I watched this ball of light. We got out our binoculars. The light was in a single place for 45 minutes. There were no navigation lights, so I knew at that point in time it was something peculiar. And as I watched and watched it, another one came out of the larger light, and this moved around in a circle, and then they both took off together, and it was jaw-dropping. And so every night for a few months, I set up my camera, and I caught different variations on the theme. For me, being somebody who is very active in my community, I wanted to know what it was. Because 85 miles away from Salt Lake City, we have one of the most dangerous biological and chemical weapons testing facilities in the world. If you don't know about Dugway, I would encourage you to learn more about it. And I can't believe that a lot of people in Utah don't understand the gravity of a place like Dugway. Throughout the decades, there have been multiple UFO sightings in and around the area. So clearly they are being monitored, which is kind of comforting. But I knew right then and there that I needed to take my research further. So I became the state director for Utah MUFON, and I had a wonderful time building up the chapter and meeting people, getting my footing. And then I quickly realized that for me, I wanted to go to different locations. I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to meet with the leading scientists in the world, people that have had experiences, and that I was going to do whatever it took to do that. I have been to some of the most active locations in the world, including Skinwalker Ranch, including up near the Yakima Indian Reservation in Washington State. And recently, I had the pleasure to travel to Norway. And have any of you heard of Hessdalen? Yes. Yay, 3 people. Okay. When you get done with this lecture, I want you to go home and look at Project Hessdalen. Project Hessdalen is the most important scientific study with regard to anomalous light phenomena that we have ever seen. And when we look at all of the nonsense and the garbage that takes place in the United States of America, and all the political games and the fact that we're not really very apt to give anybody the truth, unfortunately, then I say that we look away from the United States and we look to Norway. When I was in Norway, I met with Erling Strand, who was the lead professor at Ostfold College. And 35 years ago, the town of Hessdalen, this little sleepy, beautiful village, I wish I could show you the pictures, had encounters, UFO sightings. They had up close and personal, they were seeing strange creatures. These balls of light were coming into their homes. The town people were terrified. And as a result, they didn't know what to do, and so they turned to the media. And of course, we know how well that works out when you do that. But of course, people came in, thousands of people from all over. They set up their equipment, and these good, innocent people were ridiculed and made fun of, and they were marginalized. And I know that none of us would know what that feels like, right? But Erling is, to me, one of the most amazing and beautiful human beings I've ever met. And I try not to get teary-eyed when I talk about him, because he is, in my opinion, the most important person in the world with regard to this. I had a candid conversation, many candid conversations with him while I was there. And he told me about the inception of Project Hessdalen. So after Erling saw these people and saw the ridicule that they were facing, he knew that he had to do something about that, and he specifically said, science is not supposed to act like this. We are not supposed to be like this. We are supposed to help people find answers. And so he got a group of his friends together back in 1983, and they got funding. They were there for a few weeks, and they had sightings like you would not believe, over 100 from my recollection. And after that, he knew that this was real without a doubt. And so he worked with the military, he worked with Ostfold College, and created funding, created Project Hessdalen, and now they have live stream cameras that you can see. They are working with Italian, French, German scientists, and people are engaging this topic like adults. They are making incredible progress. And so when you see the anomalous light phenomena, that would be what most of our UFO sightings are, the spherical objects, the amber-orange spheres specifically. They have had interactions with these objects, one in particular where, of course, we hear people will pick up a flashlight and flash in a sequence. they did this and the objects responded. So they have identified, and this is critically important, 4 different types of light phenomena that behaves intelligently. This is a scientific study, and you wouldn't find that happening here in America, I can tell you that much. Thank you. But every morning I woke up and we would get in the car and we were there at a really cool time. It was during science camp. Twice a year in Norway, Ostfold College takes the engineering students to Hessdalen, and they teach. The students climb mountains, and they have computers and everything that you can think of, and they stay for 2 weeks up in the most intense conditions to collect data. They teach. Oh, thank you. Very nice. We'll get it, and when we get it, you guys are going to be super stoked. But, and so will I. But the students are absolutely stunned when they see this anomalous light phenomenon. So I was there, and I would climb up mountains, and I would sit in the tents with these students, and I would also see them come back to the main hub of activity where they would go, kind of a staging area, and hear them talk about what they'd seen. And they were so excited. They were just thrilled, and they were learning how to use instrumentation to study this phenomenon. They were empowering students in college to look at this seriously, and that, again, is something that we just don't do in the United States of America, and I certainly hope that that can come to, I hope that that will change at some point in time. I also had a conversation with him. One day we were sitting on the couch, and I asked him personally how hard it was for him as somebody in the scientific community to broach this subject. You know, this is back in 1983. And I asked him if he faced ridicule, and he says, you know, of course I did. This was a really hard thing, and I had many, many colleagues come to me and say, what are you doing? Stop it, you're gonna ruin your career. And he said, no, this is the most important thing I will do. These people deserve the best. And so it was to hear him coming from this place of pure love of these people, pure love of science, and knowing that he could be one of a handful of people that made a difference. I mean, thank you. Yeah, I mean, oh, baby Joseph, okay. You guys get to see the pictures. This is so exciting. Thanks, you guys. So when I talk about this I always get teary-eyed because it was such a special moment for me to be in a location like this and to see people learning and to see people taking this, like we all should, very seriously. I want to, hopefully, talk a little bit about some of the areas now that my slides are working with regard to the places I have been and the experiences I have had. In the early 2000s, I traveled to Ireland, and I had the unique opportunity to stay in every haunted castle and learn from everyone over there about the paranormal. I then, and we don't have the picture here, but I traveled to England a few years ago, and I was there 3 days after the Ansi crop circle formation was discovered. And I was with Gary King, who's one of the world's leading experts in crop circle formations, and I had a very wonderful moment with him and Michael Glickman, another wonderful crop researcher, where they were talking candidly about their experiences in this circle and why this actually wasn't a man-made circle. It was one of those really unique events that I just absolutely loved. I also went to Arizona, and there is a very special spot in southern Arizona. And when I was there, this is a place that has been studied by several different researchers. They don't disclose the information about the location for good reason. It is out in the middle of nowhere, and we took our sleeping bags for 6 nights. We slept with no tent, out in the middle of the desert, coyotes walking through our camps. I climbed mesas and saw things and videotaped things that are truly, truly remarkable. It was a great experience, and it just has been adding to my research base, which is important. And then clearly, you guys don't get photos. Okay, we're just gonna have to roll with this. Groovy. So after I went to Arizona and I traveled to Norway, I want to tell you a little bit about this experience I had in Norway because this is so cool. So every night I would go out with Erling, and we would go out to the middle of this barren field, and the wind was whipping. It was so freaking cold, and I actually took my snow outfit, and that didn't even do anything. But we set up our cameras, and this was one of the most active locations in the world. It was so cool. And there was, the first night I was there, it was just Erling and myself, and I could hear right next to us 2 male people talking. And I knew that there was nobody around us. I mean, there wasn't. We knew exactly what the surroundings were like. The next night, we came out with a third fellow who has photographed a lot of really unusual objects in the Hessdalen Valley. And he also heard the males, 2 males having a conversation right next to us. It was very unusual. And so I stepped out. I walked quite a ways away from both Erling and Thomas and turned on my video camera. And granted, I couldn't get anything on video, but I did have audio. And after a few minutes of standing there, I just asked in a whisper, "Where are you?" And when I played the tape back, something said right here. And so it was just one of those moments like, oh my God, these moments that you live for. And I never, ever felt threatened. I felt that whatever was there was very genuinely communicating with me, and that it was, in my opinion, a very beautiful moment for me that I will always remember. Norway, again, was just such a special place, and I encourage all of you to really find out about it and to support it and to share information about it, because science can broach this subject. It has to, and it is doing just that in Norway. My other research has been with regard to Utah, and I am a Utah native, and so I take that very, very seriously. I have been amassing a library. I have the best library in Utah, historical archives, research from other researchers who are passing away. I've created a learning facility where people can come in and study all the history of the matter. And I'm setting up a non-for-profit, which is really cool. But in my process of doing all of this, I have been conducting interviews with researchers in the area. I have also, like I was mentioning, been to Skinwalker Ranch, and 4 weeks ago I went up to interview, oh, you are so good, Joseph Jr. Hicks. And Junior Hicks he's 91 now, he is a high school science teacher, and I'm sure all of you probably read Hunt for the Skinwalker, hopefully. Okay, good. So he is, in my opinion, again, just like Erling, one of the most important figures in this subject. So he began when he was in his 60s, or in the 60s, he began receiving reports from the police department, from the tribal police, UFO reports. They didn't know what to do, and he wanted them. He began working with people to try to help them process what they were seeing in the Uinta Basin. The Uinta Basin it's not only Skinwalker Ranch, but the whole area has had sightings for decade after decade. And we are talking about a sighting in 1960 where children were on a school bus and a UFO lands in front of the school bus and little occupants come out. I mean, this is the type of sightings that we see continually. I'm just going to burn through this. I also have found somebody that I hold in high regard, and I'm so grateful I had the opportunity to meet him, Dr. Frank Salisbury, who was a botanist in Utah. He also worked with NASA, and he wrote this book, which is the best book on the Uinta Basin. and he wrote it with Junior Hicks, so you can look back and see some of these historical cases. It was just amazing. At the University of Utah Library's Special Collections, I found many, many boxes full of his personal writings, his papers, his communications with Dr. Jacques Vallée and many, many other people that are prominent in the field. And it provided me a very candid look at this individual's life, his bravery, and how in one specific folder I found communications where he felt like he had kind of lost his footing, he'd lost his way, and he had to step back. And as we know, Grant, I mean, all of us know this, sometimes you have to step back because you do get kind of thrown off your game a little bit with this, and it's important to step back. But here is a photo, and this is of one of his journals. And this is what he used to describe all of the different people that were having sightings. This is in the book. And so there were page after page of all of this with notes, and it was the coolest thing. And then here I am up in this area, and I was contacted by a family, a son. He introduced me to his mother and his grandmother. And I went up there. They're right outside the ranch. They've had 3 generations of UFO encounters, experiences, abductions. The grandmother passed away about a year ago, but I have 2 days worth of film where I'm interviewing her. And she's taking me through her life as a 3-year-old, and she's talking about these beings that came to her, that medically healed her. And how very hard it was in a very small Mormon community to process this information, to know that you were different, and to know that you could hardly even talk to your parents about this. So in this photo, I am at their home, and she is pointing to an area where there was a UFO that, according to them, landed and left indentations. This had been decades before. So here I am with Joseph Junior Hicks, and this interview, and I just obtained funding to do my documentary, and when this interview is aired, it will blow your mind. In one of the moments that Junior was talking, he told me about a sighting, and I've got to tell you this because this is just off the charts, but he said that there were 3 men, and they were out one night. They were on tribal land, and this winged creature landed on the roof of the car. The car window was cracked, and this creature stuck his hand in and grabbed the person, just left him bloody, but he was able to snap 3 photos. I don't know how you would do that when you'd be in that situation, but he was good. In the 3 photos, the first photo shows the forehead of this creature that had horns coming out of it, wrapping around. In the second picture, he photographed the eyes, what were glowing red eyes. And then the other picture, it was a hand, a very large, hairy hand that was coming through the window. When, obviously, these men were traumatized, there was significant damage done to the car. And when the men went through and they saw a few tribal police officers, they said, "We need help. My friend is injured. Help us, help us." And the tribal police said, there's nothing to see here. We're not going to touch it. Keep driving. So after that, they found the local medicine man, and everyone, Junior Hicks was there. He saw the photos. The medicine man blessed the people that were involved, and he said, "Delete the pictures." So unfortunately, that's what happened, but it is an amazing story, and Junior Hicks has many more stories, so I look forward to sharing that with you. This is the beautiful woman that I interviewed, the grandmother, Varnes, and again, I'm going to be interweaving these into my documentary because they're so important for you to see this brave, beautiful woman talk about her lifetime of sightings and how she really felt at the end of her life that whatever this was protecting and comforting her. And I think it was a beautiful, she's an amazing lady. So this is Skinwalker Ranch. This is the new gate, and this I did have the pleasure of going there and spending time, and it was every bit as creepy and beautiful as you could imagine. It really is truly a stunning place. I was there 5 weeks ago when I was interviewing Junior Hicks and set up all of my equipment on the periphery of the ranch. I wasn't on the ranch, and had quite a light show. The experience I had and some of the photographs that I took are very intense. And I think I came back from that sighting and had a little bit of post-traumatic stress syndrome after that. I'm still trying to wrap my head around what I saw. This is a picture of the tree, and if you know Hunt for the Skinwalker, there was a time when the owner of the ranch saw these glowing orbs, and the dogs chased the glowing orbs, and the next thing they heard were yelps of the dogs, went out right by this tree and found the dogs were reduced into a grease puddle of oily substance and fur. And so here's the new dog. Doesn't seem, too affected, but that was just one of those things. And then this is a photo of the old homestead, one of the old homesteads, and this is where a lot of the activity is centralized. So these are fun pictures. You don't often get the chance to see them. And then this is me standing in front of the blue box in Norway. So the blue box is up on a hill, and let me tell you, I really should have worked out a little bit harder before I went there because it was tough climbing those mountains. This blue box it's the central data hub. So in here you have got everything, radar, you have tons of equipment, and I'll show you the list of some of the equipment that they're using. And so that's where they go. And when I was here, there was an Italian team, as I was mentioning, that was putting new instrumentation in the blue box at the time. So I want you just to read this for a moment, because when they were trying to figure out what to call this and how to label it, they decided to call it the Hessdalen phenomena. And it is anomalous light phenomena, like I've mentioned, where you would see this type of activity all over the world in different locations. In fact, I would be willing to bet that some of you have seen this and maybe have just not known that there's such a great significant study. Here is from 1983. This is the first letter they did an email to all of the important people with regard to this. As I mentioned, Jacques Vallée, they were working with Paul Devereaux, who was an Earth lights expert in Europe, and many other people, and they would inform everyone about how the project was coming, and it's so cool to read through all of these. And then there is the most fabulous man on the planet, Professor Erling Strand. And so we stayed in this beautiful little cottage every morning. We woke up and looked at this church and cemetery and the beautiful mountainside and listened to the sheep. It was amazing. And I got to watch him work. I got to watch him analyze the data to communicate with the teams that were out in the field in the middle of the night. And he was going nonstop. It was so cool to watch. But these are some of the things on their first expedition that they took. And so if you ever want to get out in the field, this is definitely, these are the pieces of equipment that would be great. I know radar might be a little bit difficult. Some of these could be more expensive, but when we were out in the field, we took our cameras. He taught me how to take photographs at night and what to look for when I was really putting things through the paces, which was very, very cool. There's a little UFO. This is one of the places where some of the scientists were staying. And so on different occasions, I would go in there and meet with them. This is at the top of a very, very windy mountain. And this is one of the cool kids that was up there doing the science project and talking about this. He had been there multiple times. The stories he told me were just incredible. This was up close and personal. And then here we are, and Erling is trying to batten down the hatches because it was so windy, so we were getting everything taken care of there. And then there is Erling, who was clearly always 50 steps ahead of me because I thought I was going to pass out. But it was amazing. This is the blue box, and that is the Italian team putting up new instrumentation. And I'm burning through these, and then that is the inside of the blue box. So you can just see, I couldn't take photographs of some of the things, but some of the things I could. And then here we have Erling, and this is one of the nights that we were out there when this object, or this thing, energy communicated with me. This is right before dusk, and we were setting everything up. I want to play this now, hopefully, so you can see. Listen to this. This is Erling in his own words. What? I just need a permanent helper up here, I think.
Sorry.
These guys are so nice to take care of me. Can you just follow me around the rest of the day? Because I think, okay, thank you. I need some, yeah, absolutely. This is clearly why you don't use a Mac. I think it stopped. Thank you. It's just up at the top. Well, we'll get there. You can see us in our little...
Hold on. They didn't plug my...
See, this is a community effort. You rock. That's awesome. So, yes. So when you get to hear it, this is a really great interview. So you can be excited.
Make a pop sound so everybody just embrace the...
That was very exciting. So while we're waiting for this, and clearly this, you might never be able to see this. You might have to meet me in the lobby, and then you can see some of this footage. But this is a little talk where he was mentioning the ridicule that they faced, and also how hard it was for him personally to deal with all of this. And I will set up a table after, and then you can come and hear it. I think that would be great.
Research Institute do something.
But that's Erling. Okay, that's okay. We'll just roll with it. Yeah, you know. Okay, so we will figure that out, and I'm just going to go through some photos here because clearly we don't have audio, but this is one of the beautiful vantage points of Norway. And then also here is Erling Strand, and we are out here, and he is describing, and I'm videotaping all of these things and telling us how to use camera equipment and what to do when you're looking for anomalous light phenomenon, which I know that we all try to do. I also have great videos of J. Allen Hynek, who I'm sure we all know of, but he traveled to Hessdalen before he passed away and determined that this was one of the most important places in the world to study this. This was really a UFO hotspot and ground for all of this. So that is really interesting. I am going to, and you guys are so cute, I'm going to flash forward a little bit and then talk a little bit about specifically what happened to me at Skinwalker Ranch. Because all of these places that I have traveled to, I've had something pretty significant, and I've had the luck and the ability and now the training to get in there and take photographs. Like I said, Skinwalker Ranch a few weeks ago blew my mind, and I was there with a friend. We got out of the car and you could see the whole ranch, and it was absolutely stunning. Since I'd been on the ranch before, I was very familiar with where the roads are, where the lights are, what's man-made, all of these different things. And so within about 10 minutes of getting our equipment out, I noticed that where the old homestead is, there was a light that was shining up on the mesa. And it was peculiar, it caught my eye, and so I kept watching it, and this light would travel across the mesa, and I thought that was peculiar because the road is running in such a way that that would not be anything that would be a car light. The light source was also too large. And as we watched this light, all of a sudden this illuminated mist began to form. And I'm sitting there just trying to put this in my mind, trying to wrap around what I was seeing. And then this mist started moving across the whole length of the property, and then it came towards us. And as it did, everything got very bright, and eventually the mist, more than once, this energy engulfed us. And it got, very, very cold. We could hear somebody talking or walking behind us, which I, of course, whipped around, and there was nobody there. We were stunned. And I got an intuitive feeling that whatever this was that was there, it was almost acting like a security sensor, trying to come out to figure out what we are. And then it would retreat, and then we would watch it move across the field. And then where the Skinwalker Ridge is, there was a beautiful ball of light that hovered, and then there was another one. And I have pictures of all of these. It was truly incredible. Video of us. We were there for 2 hours, and this just kept happening. It was like there was a portal that had opened up here, and I spoke with Junior Hicks after my experience because I was pretty rattled, and Junior said, well, I would have probably gotten out of there. But no, I love doing this, and I felt like, again, this was just such a special experience. Like whatever this was, it knew we were there, and it put on a light show for us. There was no possible way that the ground could have been illuminated like that by anything. There was no light source. I don't know what I saw, and if any of you have ever experienced anything like that, I would really, really, really love to hear your stories, because I'm, again, trying to document things and put so many things together with all of this. So, do we have audio yet, do we think? Okay.
Jaha, jag heter Christer Nordin och ordförande då för UFO Sverige. Vi befinner oss uppe i Hessdalen nu på det här Project Hessdalen. Vid min sida har jag Dr. G. Allen Hynek från just now from Arizona.
Arizona now, yes, the new place.
Not more in Illinois. Okay, Alan Hynek, what do you think about the Scandinavia weather and what we're doing here?
It's been a real experience, a marvelous experience, and I'm hoping before too long to come to Sweden again, because I enjoyed my stay there very much. So one of these days I'll come there again, and I'll invite all of you to come to Arizona, where it's nice and warm.
I can think that we look at the weather now here. We are also still here in Norway now, so and Alan have been here for 2 days, with us,
now.
just looking to the project and what we are doing here.
No.
I don't think we have seen any UFO phenomena when you are here.
Not this time, no, but
Very sorry for that.
it's in a sense rather interesting, because it shows that you're not faking, because you see the first Project Hessdalen number 1 had some very nice results.
Yes.
Project 2 didn't, but you see, that goes to prove that the first one was correct.
Oh yeah, that's the point of it. Oh yes. Oh, we shall hope that we can get something out of this Project Hessdalen we are doing here, and we hope, of course, that you can help us in the United States.
I will.
To sell.
One of the reasons I came, I wanted to see it for myself.
Yeah, what we're doing.
Letters and all that is fine, but it is much better to see for yourself.
Yes, of course. You can tell them now that you have been on the place.
Been on the place, and I know what it's like. And
cold and winter.
And my camera didn't work too well, but I'm hoping I can get some pictures from the various people who took pictures, because I want to see the pictures of the tents and the hut and so forth.
Yeah, that'd be very good. Yeah. I also know that Alan Heine have a very shaking experience with the Swedish cars here, or Norwegian cars. We have stopped in the gasolines. Problem.
It was a Mazda. It wasn't a Swedish car. It was a Japanese car.
Oh, the Japanese. Good, you said that. Thank you.
It was a Japanese car that did that, and if we hadn't stopped near a house,
it could be a problem.
It was very, very cold. It's minus 34. And
34 degrees of cold when Alan
cold.
Hynek was here, yeah?
and if we'd had to walk, we could have frozen to death.
Okay, of course.
So
But here we are.
here we are,
Standing here.
and everything is fine.
Yes. And many of the members of the group shall leave back to the positions again, to Sweden, the most of them. But we are still here for...
So we're here another night.
Yes, we are. So we shall see what's happened.
Yeah.
All right.
Now I think we should go get some soup.
Oh, yes. It's very nice to have you here, Alan. Thank you.
In regards to all the very nice people that I met in Sweden and my good friends, and I hope to see you again before too long.
Thank you.
So that was a really lovely interview. I have another interview from his time over there, but he unfortunately passed away before he could make it back. But he did, that was oh my gosh, I think that must have been like 1987-ish, but he was thrilled to get over there. Clearly he's a warm weather kind of guy, but so here now we've got the interview with Erling. This is really awesome, so I'm excited. It's working.
It started already back in late 1981 when there was a huge amount of sightings up here in this small Norwegian valley, 15 kilometers long. And the people saw mostly a light outside, and I was wondering what it was. And newspaper wrote about it. Several people come up here in the beginning of the 80s because this lasted a long time with this high intensity. Well, from November 1981 to late 1984. So many people went up there. And it made a big impression on me because it was a huge light. That was back in 1982. No one did do anything, just talked about it. And people was asking, why doesn't that university do something? Why doesn't that research institute do something? Everyone talked about that. And we did also, me and my friends. And we say, well, why don't we do something? Yes, we can do something. Why not?
Exactly. So when you had talked to me about the fact that you were seeing that these people that were having these experiences didn't necessarily, they didn't feel like they had an outlet, and so they turned to the media because they just wanted answers to what they were going through. And so I know that to you to see the ridicule and scorn that they received from the media and from maybe the mainstream scientific community, that was something that was unacceptable to you.
Yes, I read what the media was writing about it, made ridicules of people who reported it and saw it. And but I have been here myself, and I've seen it was real phenomena. So I was a little bit shocked of the writings in the media and also in television and so on. And a group of us decided to start a project, get the scientific data.
Did you have any blowback from anybody you were dealing with, any colleagues, anyone at the university? Did you have people tell you that this wasn't something that you should be looking at?
Yes, of course. When I started the first Project Hessdalen back in, it was not only me, we were a team. When we started it in 1983, I was at that time working as a researcher in Oslo, and I discussed this with my research fellows. And they say, oh, you shouldn't go into this, at that time it was called UFO, because if you're dealing with UFO, then all your research career will be ruined. But I was curious. I was too curious to let that stop me. And also I knew there was something because I'd seen it for myself. And I think that a real scientist should be curious on the unknown and not try to find a solution in just without any investigation,
Right.
which many do. And that also shocked me a little bit, that some researchers, some professors, which has a negative attitude to it, just they try to ridicule it and ridicule the people. That shocked me a little bit, because a real scientist should have the attitude, oh, this we must investigate, this we must get the data to find the solution. But very many don't do that. But there are some real scientists, which I call a real scientist.
I like it.
Which are going to the phenomena, try to find a solution the right way, how a scientist should do. Put instruments out, investigate, and get the necessary data. And
So here he talks about science camp. This is very cool. And maybe I will just tell you about science camp. So, as I had mentioned, I'm telling you, the joys of PowerPoint when I'm involved, it's a very special moment for all of us, for all of you. So as I was mentioning, science camp is a wonderful process. Fun to see students learning all about this, and I think it's important. I hope that sometime we will have the ability to do that in the United States, and that people in the universities will really truly take this seriously, the scientific community. When I was there, I had, thanks to Erling, he introduced me to this fellow, and if any of you have ever seen the movie The Portal, if you haven't, I would recommend seeing it, because it is a brilliant documentary about the Hessdalen light phenomena, and it was done about 15 years ago, from my recollection. And in it, he interviewed the people that were affected by the UFOs, and interviewed this gentleman's sister. They grew up in the Hessdalen Valley, and I have an hour interview with him that Erling is translating, and he talks about there was a specific time where one of his friends were seeing these little beings. There was a time when they went out and found huge sections of soil that had been dug up and with all of the roots intact, put into, just laid down in another location perfectly intact. And this is, and I want to just give you guys something to think about. With my research, I look for commonalities. This type of soil displacement, cookie cutters is what we call them, takes place in Skinwalker Ranch, it takes place at the Yakima Indian Reservation, it takes place in Missouri, it takes place in Norway. So this is something that you will see in hotspots. And I will be putting some work online with regard to this. But as John began to talk about the sightings, and even though Erling was translating, and so there was the language barrier, you could see in his eyes the emotion. And when this first started happening back in the 80s, he felt that perhaps because there was a military base that was just built not too far from here, he thought that the activity was because of that base, that it was perhaps monitoring what was taking place there. He also, I asked him how this has affected his life. And again, just like the woman I interviewed up at Skinwalker Ranch, he looked at me with tears in his eyes. And it was a very a tender, very heartfelt moment. Because here you have two people, older people, that have had experiences that have been documented that I can share with all of you, and I look forward to doing that, but talking about this and how it's affected them. And I have no doubt that all of us in here have had a lifetime of experiences as well. And for each and every one of us, we are doing the best that we can to try to process this information. And for me, I have, since I was a child, kept a journal, and I've been writing things down as they come to me, and it has been a really interesting process. I know that Barbara knows all about this, and I would love to just talk to you, Barbara, because you've got so much information about this. But I keep going back to, my experiences, and I want to show you this because this is a drawing that I made in 3rd grade. And so this, I don't know why I would draw this. It is a similar case that took place. There was the Carl Higdon abduction case took place in that same time period. This was back in the 70s. And it's interesting that I drew this picture for many, many different reasons, but I just recently found it. I was thumbing through my old grade school papers, and I saw this and some other artwork I had done with UFOs, a group of poems that I had written where I talk about the light, the ground, this illumination, these spheres of light. I mean, I was in grade school. And so for me to see that again, and to know that it's affected me my whole life, and I am shocked. To give you a little bit more information on my own personal story, I was living at Dugway Proving Ground the first year of my life. My father was in the military. And at the time, my mother remembers that there were a lot of sightings on the base, and that was definitely the talk of the town. And one day, my father was driving from the base up to Ogden, and his car was hit with a bright light. And he said that the car just felt like it was floating. And in those few minutes, he had what he felt was some sort of transmission. He felt it was God. But whatever this was telling him exactly the way his life was unfolding and what he was going to do with it, and everything has come to pass. He was very profoundly, as we all would be, affected by this situation. And he also came home, and this was decades ago, wrote a book on the multiverse. No one had even talked about that at the time. And so to look back now and learn all of these things and see how, this has been, this interplays in a very complex and puzzling and beautiful way in all of our lives. But since you have probably had these experiences, please make sure you journal, and you're going back every few months, and you're picking through and looking at the pieces of the puzzle, because the more I look into this, the more I research, the more experiences I have, the more things start to fall into place and make sense. And I have absolutely no doubt, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, that whatever is there, it communicates with us. It listens to us. I never have felt threatened by what I have experienced. I know that some people report that they do, but I have felt empowered. I have felt blessed. I feel that I am on this stage because this is where I need to be, because there are people that need answers. And a lot of times, unfortunately, in America specifically, we don't get those answers because we know the United States government has done its best to intimidate witnesses, to undermine the credibility of people who have had life-changing and profound experiences, which to me is, whatever reason they decided to make decades ago, I think they have chosen poorly. And as a result, all of the people who deserve to be heard and appreciated have been marginalized, and I think that is a very great tragedy. Hopefully that will change, and if we can keep looking again to Norway, looking to the great study that Free has done, and that beautiful book out there that Ray has at his table, which I would encourage you to get. This is where things can go. This is where it's going, and I really want each and every one of you to feel empowered. You are all groundbreakers. You are here today because you have the intelligence to understand that we're not alone and that we are interacting with things. You are brave. And I feel very strongly that we are all here and we can make a great change. And so please, when somebody looks at you and minimalizes your experiences, then you say, look at the data. Go to Barry Greenwood's website and look at all of the declassified documents that he has collected decade after decade, where the United States government very clearly states that it would do its best to minimize the people that were experiencing this. Look at the research here. Try to look at Ted Phillips, who has done amazing work with trace cases. You can find some of his videos online. I always also encourage you to read the work of my friend and colleague Greg Bishop, who's written really incredible books. And I have to say, out of all the people in the field, I think Greg is a person that I truly respect. He's done great work. So I think that we can make a difference. I know we can make a difference. And for me to talk with all of you and to hear your stories and to see you become excited and empowered, it means the world to me. I get very emotional about this because of my own personal experiences and because I've had the ability to be at a table with some of the leading scientists in the world, with Erling Strand, people that didn't have to take the time with me, but did because they understood that my heart was in the right place and I wanted to make a difference in this subject. And so I get very sorry. Thanks. Sorry. Thank you. I feel he's a special human being and we're all special, but I want you to look to this kind of man for answers and to share his work. And let's continue that here. And again, like I say, I'm here and I would love to hear each of your stories. And I want to know why each of you is here. And I want to hear about your families and the ridicule that maybe you faced. Because as a business owner in Utah, as a female in the field of ufology, I've definitely been through the ringer. And it was a very difficult decision for me in a religious community to come out and say, guess what, I'm a UFO researcher. I bet you want to come to my business. It was a very different thing. So, but I did it, and here I am. And I just want to, again, thank Neil and thank everybody that tried to help me get my PowerPoint up and running. You guys rock, and just please be empowered. Don't ever let anybody tell you that this isn't real, because we all know it is, and we are breaking ground. We are leading the way, and I'm very proud to be in this room and on this stage in front of you. So anyway, thank you.